Charlotte Broom has enjoyed a dance career that has spanned over 20 years. A principal ballerina in companies such as the Northern Ballet Theatre and Cullberg Ballet in Sweden, she has performed in numerous theatre productions including Macbeth, Midsummer Night's Dream, Comedy of Errors and Oedipus in renowned venues on the London's West End, the Royal Opera House and Sadlers Wells. And she's assisted choreography on TV shows including Humans and So You Think You Can Dance. She is currently working as a movement director on a theatre production of The Hunger Games. In this conversation, she discusses what it takes to become a professional ballerina, juggling motherhood, and dancing into your 40s. Please welcome the elegant Charlotte Broom.
The greatest showwoman!
So, welcome Charlotte Broom. Thank you so much for coming in. What I know of you is that you're a ballet dancer and a dance theatre director. You've also done contemporary dance and many, many other things. But what I'd like to ask you first is to go back to your childhood and ask you what were you like as a child?
I was really committed to dancing.
Mm-hmm.
So I started dancing when I was 4. And by the time I was 9, I was training every day.
Wow.
And luckily my parents supported that. My mum drove me every night to ballet class after school. And I was really, really committed and dedicated, and that was what I was going to do.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, so do you remember, because 4 is so young, do you remember thinking, because I have to say, I did this, I remember my earliest memory was like 7, I think, or 6 maybe, thinking I'm going to be a dancer. And is that the kind of thing you had at 4? Because that's so young.
It started off, my school teacher said to my mum, just from music and movement we did at school, she's quite musical, maybe you should send her to ballet class. And my mum said, okay. And it never happened. And I kept saying, when am I going to go to ballet class? When?
Mm-hmm.
And eventually, when I started going, I just loved it instantly.
Yeah.
And just wanted to do more and more and more and more.
Yeah, and you just took to it, I guess, because then
Yeah.
it became, like you said, a commitment.
Yeah,
I mean,
a
every
huge
day
commitment.
from such a young age.
Yeah.
So how long did you keep going, like right through to adulthood, or
when I I trained every day from 9, and then by the time I was 11, my teacher had said to me that I should audition for the Royal Ballet School.
Wow.
So I went through a rigorous audition process.
Mm-hmm.
My parents had to take me down to London for part of it, and I'm from the north of England originally.
Mm-hmm.
So it was, a really hefty process, and my parents kept saying to me, if you don't get in, it's fine, don't worry, no pressure. And I got in. There's like 20 kids go every year internationally.
Wow.
So it's not just from the UK, it's a global audition.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got in, and that meant I had to go away to boarding school down to London, in Richmond Park. And, that for me, I was, the first few months, I was just like, this is amazing, because I was just doing ballet all the time, training. And then it slowly dawned on me, I'm actually away from my mum and dad and my sisters, and it was quite hardcore.
Yeah, how old were you? Was that at 11?
I went at 11, yeah.
Wow.
And, the training, it was strict. It was really, back in the day, though it was brutal. It was, comments all the time about how you looked, and, when you're that age, 11, 12, 13, it's very difficult, but that was all part of it. You just, roll with punches, and every year you have at the Royal Ballet School, you have assessments. So if they don't think you're going to make it as a dancer, you get asked to leave the school.
Wow.
And when it got to the 3rd year, I passed all my assessments. When it got to the 3rd year, they said, we don't think you're going to make it as a dancer because physically you are too strong.
Too strong?
Too strong, like muscular, too muscular, not sort of svelte and thin, and, So it was a huge upheaval and a huge pressure. Then August, July, goodbye, thanks very much, pack up all your stuff. And I went off to another ballet school called Elmhurst Ballet School. where it was just as strict, but we were learning all sorts of different types of dance, contemporary, Spanish, jazz, and acting, a bit of drama as well. And I stayed there until I was 17, so from 14 to 17, and then got a job in a ballet company.
Okay. So I want to ask you a bit more about the training because, I've watched, coming from dance, I've watched so many dance movies and you see those horrendous ones about ballet and the anorexia that's rife for starters.
Yeah.
But also being too muscular. Yeah, I didn't think of that because I thought obviously being too fat, you can't be a ballet dancer. And there's many reasons for that. But being too strong, I mean, I guess in their opinion, appearing muscular, it was the classic, thin and svelte, like you said. But a ballet dancer has to be exceptionally strong. That is one of the most difficult physical disciplines.
Yes, yeah.
There is. So how many girls, suffer from being too underweight and kind of can't keep up with the demand, the physical demand? How is it possible to be that thin and strong without looking muscular?
For me, I was, quite... I was also quite tall. I grew quite early. So that was also one of the reasons they thought I was going to be really tall, where in fact, I grew early and then later on, some of my classmates overtook me.
Right.
They thought that I should go into contemporary dancing, which is more suitable to more, a stronger physique. But yes, your question about how that it does happen because you're in a school where they're constantly checking what your weight is, with weighing scales every week, and there's constant talk about, we have to get rid of this or we have to get rid of that.
Wow.
So you're constantly you're training in front of a huge mirror the whole time, and you have to, you're forced to sort of look at yourself.
Wow.
And yeah, it was really extreme, and of course there was that going on. But I think it is different. It is different today. I know there's still the demands, and I know there's still the pressures. I think they word things slightly differently, and they're a bit more careful at how they say things instead of, just coming up to your thighs and saying, "We need to slice this off."
Oh my gosh.
I think they're a bit more aware now of how to. And there's nutritionists. We didn't have nutritionists. It was just,
starve yourself.
Lose weight. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Do you think things have changed?
I do think things have changed. It's difficult because, the aesthetic for a ballet dancer is very thin. But I think if you have the right support, the right nutrition, and physical therapists, which they do have now in schools, I think there's much more safety. Whereas back in the day, people were getting injured because you'd be not eating enough, and
that's right, deficient in essential minerals. Do you think the aesthetic has slightly changed in that it's a little bit more flexible, perhaps, than it once was? Do you see more variation in shapes?
Yeah, you see a variation in height, which you didn't used to see. So there are taller dancers, and I haven't been in the ballet world for a long time now, so I don't really, I couldn't really say what is going on now. But I think muscle tone is more appreciated now than it was.
For sure. Yeah. When we were teenagers.
Yes,
Absolutely. It's all about the booty.
Yeah.
So tell us about that first job. What was that doing?
So I was 17 and I got a job in a company called Vina Ballet Theatre, which is lots of young dancers on a coach travelling through Europe. Wow. Doing Swan Lake. Sometimes we'd sleep on the coach and we'd wake up in another country and get our point shoes on and our tutus on and do Swan Lake. It was great fun, and it was a great way to get a little bit of performance experience and to get rid of that green student look. Because we were just doing shows all the time. So I did that for a couple of years, maybe a year and a half. And in that time, I really wanted to go to a particular ballet company called Northern Ballet Theatre. And so I think I auditioned there 3 times. The first time I auditioned, I didn't get past, it was like half an hour out.
Yeah.
The second time, I think I got to the centre practice
Mm-hmm.
out. And the third time, I kept going and kept going and kept going. And
Mm-hmm.
I thought, actually, I wonder if I'm in for a chance here.
Yeah.
And I got a contract with the company.
Amazing.
And started there when I was 20.
Yeah. And how long did you then stay with them?
I stayed with them for 8 years.
Wow.
I started off as a first-year corps de ballet
Mm-hmm.
and went through the ranks. And by the time I left, I was principal artist,
Wow.
doing the lead roles.
Yeah. Did you do partner dancing with the ballet?
Yes.
How many men were in the company?
I think it was 50-50.
Oh, wow.
So
Okay.
a lot of the ballets like Romeo and Juliet, Cinderella, Don Quixote, all those Giselle, all those big classical ballets.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of it is about duet work and relationship and partnership.
Yeah.
So yeah, I had some very, very nice partners in my time in Northern Ballet. I was
Yeah.
really lucky, had some great people to work with. And the main thing was the director, the artistic director was Christopher Gable.
Mm-hmm.
He was an actor, he was a dancer and an actor.
Mm-hmm.
And he was one of the most inspiring people that I could have worked with.
That's
He was
wonderful.
a wonderful director, really nurturing, really, just had your best interest at heart.
Yeah.
He was a very, charismatic man.
Yeah.
And I felt very, very lucky to be under his direction.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. So have you done all those ballets that you mentioned?
I
Because I
did,
don't know much
yes.
about what you've done.
Yeah.
So could you tell us a bit
I
about the shows
did.
you've done?
So that Northern Ballet Theatre was quite famous at the time for doing narrative ballets.
Mm-hmm.
So all the ballets that we did had story. So there was Romeo and Juliet, Cinderella. Sometimes there were new ballets. We did a ballet from Dracula, Bram Stoker's
cool.
Dracula.
Yeah.
But everything everything was about storytelling as well
Yeah.
as really excellent classical technique. It was about storytelling as well.
Yeah. Oh, that's incredible. So did you have a preference? Like, do you like being, obviously a soloist, but do you prefer partner dancing or doing the solo work or chorus line? Or did you have a preference?
I think I liked it all. I don't think you could have one without the other.
Yeah.
In a like a 3-act ballet, which lasts, 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
You're going to have a few duets, a few solos, some group dancing.
Yeah.
It's all part of the storytelling, really.
Yeah.
And yeah, I loved it all.
Yeah.
All of it. I felt because I joined the company as a first year, the lowest rank.
Mm-hmm.
By the time I'd finished, I think for example, in Romeo and Juliet, and we did a ballet called Christmas Carol as well.
Mm-hmm.
I'd done all the roles throughout my time, just moving
Wow.
from role to role to role to role, role to role.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
And then did you go to another company after that, or is that when
I
you...
did,
Okay.
yes. I was 28, I'd been in Northern Ballet for 8 years, and I thought before I left, we'd just done a ballet called Carmen, which was choreographed by Didi Veldman, and it was very contemporary in style, so a big departure from what I had been doing, what the company had been doing, and I absolutely loved it. And I felt like my physicality, which is, a strong physicality, really lent itself well to that kind of physical, earthy dancing. And I felt throughout my time in Northern Ballet, I'd always felt like I was not quite small enough and not quite,
Really? Wow.
tiny enough,
Wow.
I suddenly felt like when I was doing dancing in Carmen,
Yeah.
I felt like my strength was really lending itself to the choreography, and I
Style.
felt like,
Yeah.
wow, this feels me. This feels great. I don't have to try and look different, behave differently.
Yeah.
So once I'd done that ballet, I thought I'd always loved this company in Sweden, in Stockholm, called Cullberg Ballet. And I'd watched all their videos, I knew all their dancers, and the director and main choreographer was Matsek at the time. And I was a huge fan. And one of my best friends has already moved there to Sweden and was in the company, and they were having an audition. And he said, why don't you come along, you can stay with me and you can audition. So I booked a flight, got to Sweden, enrolled for the audition, put a number on, and there were hundreds of people, hundreds. And the process, you know, we did ballet class, a lot of people got sent away. Then we did a little bit of repertoire, we learned a bit of that, you know, I think it might have been from Swan Lake. And then the next lot of people got sent away, and it kept getting cut. And right at the last moment, there were 3 of us left. And they said, you know, just go and have a break, get some water, and we'll come back and we'll do some more work. And I went into the loo and I was like, come on, you're going to get this.
I'm so close.
You're going to get this. You're so close. Last 3, come on. And really, you know, so grateful for that opportunity. I got the job and moved over to Stockholm.
And so they cut the other 2.
They
So it was
cut the
really
other 2.
that rigorous.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I thought you were going to say, yeah, they
There's
let
just
the
one
3 of us
contract.
in.
Yeah, just one contract.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
On that note, how do you, because across the board in entertainment, we're always dealing with rejection, right? So what's your take on that? Like, what has helped you get through those rejections through auditions and, you know, jobs and...
What has helped me get through big auditions is, it sounds a bit arrogant, but I don't really, it's just you go in and you feel like this job is mine. So you go in with like I've got this is it, this is mine. And you go in with a sort of fake confidence.
Yeah.
But that, you know, you're faking it, but you eventually start to believe it, and it sort of just has given me a lot of confidence in big auditions. And, you know, there are loads of jobs that you don't get, and some of them you can just go, oh, well, wasn't meant to be, roll on. And some of them really hurt and take you 3 months to get over. And but, you know, then you have to let it go and then move on and say next. But it's just different depending on the job as well that you don't get, because some of them are easy to let go. And some of them are really painful.
Do you think it gets easier over time dealing with that rejection, or do you think it, like you said, it's just job to job, like depending how much you sort of are invested in the outcome, perhaps?
I don't know if it gets easier. There's been jobs recently that I didn't get, and it's been very painful. It goes with the territory. It's the nature of the beast.
That's
you
right.
have to take the highs and the lows, really.
I mean, I guess it'd be nice to think that you just, at least you get used to the process. So you know it's either yes or a no, basically. And it might hurt, it might not, but that's just part of the game, like you said.
I think the tricky thing comes when there's like a lengthy process to get the job, and each part of that process that you get through, you get more and more hopeful, and you have to have more and more confidence and to carry you through. And then when it's, you know, when the bubble is burst at the end, you're kind of left feeling, I don't know, like a bit of an empty shell for a bit, because you put everything in it. But, you know, then you get over it, and then there's the next one to go for, and maybe you get that one. And that's the good thing, is that there's always new opportunities coming along, and some you'll get and some you won't. But
that's right.
You know, focus on the ones that you do get. And
I think it's also not for the faint-hearted, understanding that is the game, is that you just got to keep picking yourself up, go again, pick yourself up, go again.
My husband is an actor,
right?
So he is also in, you know, he also has to, he understands that that's the nature of the business. We're both in the same kind of state, you know.
I think there's something to be said for that as well, like when you have a partner who understands sort of the dedication it takes and potentially for no outcome, for no financial reward. But I was speaking to another dancer, and she said that you have to be in 110%. And I really liked that, because I thought, that's what, you know, and we discussed this too, that's what gets you through the times when you just think like, am I cut out for this? Like, I don't know if I can do another rejection. I don't know if I can fail at another thing, you know, because you have to, that love and passion has to be there, right?
Oh, definitely. Also, it's so physically demanding and draining and exhausting You have to absolutely love it to go through that every day, because you're also having to train every day and, you know, put your body through the mill.
Hell, yeah. On that note, because, you know, I always see those pictures of the ballerinas' feet, and one's in the point shoe and one's the bare foot. And you're just gobsmacked at, you know, the bumps and the shape of the toes and
the cuts. And
yeah, because it almost seems unfathomable that you can hold the whole weight of one body basically on the big toe, because unless the ballerina's got two matching, you know, one or two matching length toes. How has that been for you? Like, how are your feet now?
Well, I'm really lucky because my eldest sister, is a podiatrist. So since I was, you know, going off to the Royal Ballet School and starting to wear point shoes, she gave me exercises, and she's always looked after my feet. So I've been really lucky.
Amazing.
My feet aren't actually that bad. I mean, they're not that pretty either, but they're not that bad.
But,
I don't have
all
bunions.
feet are not that pretty,
Yeah, it's really painful having point shoes on. There's a lovely feeling when you're not in pain. There's a lovely feeling that you feel super long, and it's, you know, you're really on top of your body. It's really, but when you're in pain, when you've got a blister or you know, it's terribly painful.
Yeah, that must happen all the time too, with the amount of training required.
And also if you have a break, you know, like a Christmas break, and then your feet get soft again, and then point shoes go back on when you come back, and but I haven't done point work for a long time now. You know, when I moved to Sweden, there's no point shoes, it's all barefoot.
Of course, the contemporary
scene, so it's either socks, soft ballet shoes, or barefoot. So the toes really started to spread out after all those years in point shoes.
It's like a rehab for the feet.
Exactly.
I love that. And so then how long were you in Sweden for with that company?
I was in that company for 5 years, and it was the most amazing experience working there. It was a really great quality of life in Stockholm. And also the company that I worked for, it was Cullberg Ballet. It was, the work was top quality. The choreographers that we worked with, the company, there were 20 dancers, international dancers, and they were amazing, inspiring dancers to work with. Everywhere you looked, there would be this huge talent. We had 2 women directors, which were incredible. They knew how to look after us. They, you know, they worked us hard, but they trusted us all. So if, you know, there was one day your body was not feeling like you could cope with it, they would say, okay, let's stop. We'll pick this up again tomorrow. And then the next day, because you've been given that, you know, that trust, the next day you go 110%. You would never like push. I mean, the work requires you to push your body to the extreme. It's very, very, very physical choreography. But the care was there. And we did some amazing toured all over the world. You know, lovely, beautiful, amazing theatres, and it was a great 5 years. I absolutely loved it. And again, I feel so grateful for having that. I feel like my time in Northern Ballet and my time in Cullberg Ballet meant that I felt complete, because I'd done this range of 2 different styles of dancing, and I felt like I was luckily enough to be given some really lovely roles to dance. So I felt complete.
So you can sort of tick that off, like career-wise, like I did all those amazing things that young dancers aspire to. Amazing. So was there another company after that as a dancer and performer? Or?
After that, I became a freelance dancer, and I moved from Stockholm back to London and did quite a lot of really different type of work, some very theatrical, which I really loved, and some, some more contemporary, again, some contemporary dancing. But it just, I felt like I was again broadening the horizons and my experiences. And we did quite a lot of work, freelance projects at the Royal Opera House and the small stage, the Limbury Theatre. And at the time, it was called ROH2. and a very famous ballerina was running ROH2 called Deborah Bull. And so just to go back a little bit, when I was in Northern Ballet, I met another dancer called Christopher Ackrell. He was the dancer that then moved to Sweden and said to me, come and audition for the company, you can stay with me. We were in Sweden together, really, really, really fun friends. Then we both decided to leave Sweden at the same time and move back to London. And we were just in freelance project to project together.
Wow.
You couldn't plan it. We were just like together all the time.
So you'd both audition and both happened to get
the
job.
And
awesome.
then going back to Deborah Bull, who was leading ROH2, she said to Chris and I, if you ever have any ideas for a show that you'd like to do, come and talk to me. And we were like, okay, wow, that sounds nice.
Yeah.
You know. And then it started to ruminate, and it took us 4 years. But within that time, we started to say, maybe we could do this show. Maybe we could make a little company. Maybe we could invite lots of choreographers that we've worked with in the past to come and make pieces for us. So we took this idea to the Royal Opera House, and they said, yeah, we'll fund that.
Wow.
And they gave us studios to rehearse in. They gave us sponsorship money.
Amazing.
And we set up a company called HeadSpaceDance. So it was a really nice, unique situation, because there we were, the dancers, saying, why don't you come and make a piece with us? And saying, well, we'd quite like to work theatrically, so can you come and make a piece with us? So we had Luca Silvestrini he works quite a lot with dance and spoken word at the same time.
Amazing.
It's very unique, and he's an expert in that genre.
Right.
So he made a piece for us. Didi Veldman, who we'd worked with in Northern Ballet, made a couple of solos. Because there was also another dancer called Clemmy Sveas who was with us in Headspace. And we had Matsek gave us a duet of his, which is, unheard of, this small little start-up company getting, these top choreographers. But because we'd had history with people, I think they felt supportive of us and wanted to help.
Yeah.
And we had a choreographer called Javier de Frutos who also made a beautiful piece for us. And that was the start of our company.
Amazing. On that note, what do you think it takes because as you said, all those people came on board, obviously you'd built really healthy, positive relationships with them. So can you tell us a bit about, because I think people who aren't necessarily in entertainment, or perhaps people who are trying to get in entertainment, something that kind of comes up through each interview is how you conduct yourself, right? And like your network, building your network. Those relationships are so important because they're the people that you will undoubtedly work with in the future.
Yeah.
So what do you think, why do you think you were successful at that?
I think, I don't know. I think there's a curiosity. I feel really intrigued by people. And, if ever there's a choreographer coming in, I want to know more and I want to work closely. And I think as well as that, a huge rule in any business, but you have to be punctual, you have to be open, you have to be, nice to work with, don't block, work hard, be focused, all those things that you need in any job.
Yeah. And it pays off.
Yeah.
I love how you said a curiosity too, because it's something Hans Zimmer said there's a documentary about him too and his creative process. But I think that's so underrated, like being playful too, because it's sort of playfulness leads to creativity.
Definitely.
And a lot of sort of talk around creativity says actually play is a big part of that. So I love that you mentioned curiosity. On that note, what are your thoughts on the creative process? So then you started up your own company. How do you approach the creative process? Do you have a practice? Or can you tell us a bit about that?
I really love working closely with a team. So when we were doing our Headspace productions, we worked really closely on what the music might be with the choreographers, or what the theme might be. One of the choreographers that we used was a theatre director, Matthew Dunster, and he made a piece for us. And he was saying we can use these techniques that you use in acting and put it onto the choreography. So he brought in actioning into the studio, and we were dancing while he was helping us to action a script. So it was a really unique way of making choreography. So there's it's just really lovely to draw from each individual what their process might be. With Luca, for example, there was a lot of play, a lot of improvising. Some things then stick, and then you use that. So it comes from play, like you were saying.
Yeah.
And Javier De Frutos, he has another technique, which is you make a phrase of movement and then you retrograde it, or 1.5 it, and forward to, you get like this really long, complex piece of choreography then. So for me, I love working with different choreographers and different directors, and kind of like being a sponge. And there's not one way of doing it. There's many, many different ways. And I think that's the interesting thing, is the different ways that you can make work.
Yeah. Experimenting and trying out things. I love that too, that sort of cross-disciplinary. Yeah, because I think more and more today, maybe back 20, 30 years ago, it was very much like dancers do this, actors train like this.
Exactly.
Blah, blah, blah. But now, like you said, with drawing, actually, you create these new, unique ways of doing stuff. When you say, oh, let's try a creative writing technique on this choreography and see what happens.
I mentioned Matthew Dunster because I now work with him a lot. Now I'm not dancing anymore. I now work with him a lot. And just listening to him talking about a new play or a new project and all the different ideas that he has, it really, I sometimes when he's speaking, I get like a picture in my mind of what I then have to choreograph.
Right.
So he gives like a really strong visual, and that's really interesting for me as well.
Yeah. So when you set up your company, were you dancing in your company to start with?
I was,
well?
yes.
Yeah.
I was dancing in, then we did another production and I didn't dance in that.
Yeah.
And then, we've been on hiatus for quite a while now with Headspace. That doesn't mean it's not going to have another life, but it's been a bit on hold. It's just sleeping for a bit.
Yeah. Siesta.
Yeah. And I continue to work in different ways. I am rehearsal director for Ballet Black, which is a company for that celebrates Black and Asian heritage, and it's a beautiful company of 10 dancers, directed by Casapancho, and I coach them and I teach them, and I find that a beautiful way of continuing what all the dancing years that I've had, continuing it on to passing it on, or just helping. And I work with Matthew Dunster a lot in theatre, making sometimes choreography, sometimes movement direction.
And how old were you when you stopped dancing?
I think probably around 43.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Because I wanted to ask you, what's the usual, I was going to say lifespan, but career span for a ballerina? Because as we know, it's so physically demanding, anything can happen. I myself had to change career because I had an injury. That's unusual. I know that off the bat. But what's the general age that ballerinas retire? Let's say?
Ballerinas retire much earlier because the pressures on their body are so great.
Yeah.
I set out in my early 20s to have as long a career as I could, and I knew that once I'd got to 28 and I'd done all those classical roles that I wanted to do, to keep going for longer and longer, I needed to change. And contemporary is still like a massive physical pressure on your body, but there's something, I don't know, there's something more organic about it and more earthy. So you can, and if you look after your body and if you have people that are helping you look up, look after you, then you can keep going and keep going. I think the things that I did as a freelance was like starting to make different connections. And you have to keep reinventing yourself if you want to keep going and keep going. And of course, the stuff that I was doing when I was 40 was nowhere near as physical, but it might have been more expressive or more theatrical. So you have to keep to get all your training's worth out of your career. You have to keep reinventing and keep finding ways. And the movement direction that I do and choreography, theatre choreography, again, it's like I'm still working with dance, but just
demonstrating.
I pass it on. Yes,
That's incredible. I have to say, like, that's really inspiring to have danced into your 40s. That's amazing.
I'm actually going to be dancing next week. At Sadlers Wells, there's a festival called the Elixir Festival, which celebrates older dancers. And I was asked to dance in a project. It's just one night. But that's been really nice to get back in the studio and dance again. And, it's
What's the festival called again, sorry?
The Elixir.
Elixir.
Yeah.
Okay. And it celebrates older dancers.
Celebrates older dancers,
oh my gosh, I love that. I want to come. I want to come. Amazing. So obviously now you do choreography and theatre directing. Do you miss dancing?
Oh, I miss it.
Really?
So much.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so part of me. I did it, like I said earlier, I started when I was 4. I was doing it every day when I was 9. So since 9 years old, all the way through my career, I was dancing every day. It's my identity. It's who I am. And if a lot of the time if I hear music, especially music that I might have danced to in the past, I can feel it physically in all the sinews of my body. And also when I'm coaching at Ballet Black and I see the dancers move, sometimes I can't help myself. I'm just moving along in my chair because I feel it. I feel it so much and I miss it. I miss that, the nuances in your body that I miss being on stage and the music. And I think when I got asked to perform in this Elixir Festival, I was like, yes. I didn't
have to think.
Actually, maybe my hips might not manage this. I was like, yes.
I'm in.
Yeah.
Oh, that's incredible. Yeah. I get that. I feel like dancers are a special sort of breed of person because, like you said, I mean, I'm the same. I can't help if the music, I'm more from, I did a lot of hip hop and Brazilian dance, African dance and stuff. But I cannot, every time I think like, oh, no, I'll sit this one out. It's just like your body's moving. You're like, no, I won't be sitting it out. Okay, I'm going. I love that so much. And the way you talk and, it's very much like there's music in my body all the time. It's great. It's so great. Oh, so tell me a bit about choreographing though, because I feel like it's a natural progression for a lot of dancers. Obviously,
it is.
You still get to be involved and there around dancers. So are you enjoying that?
I love it. Yes, I really. Again, it's because I'm working as part of a team. There's the creative team, there's the director, and you're really if you're in a really great team, which Matthew Dunster always collates a really great team, it's just wonderful. You have this kind of, it's like a creative hub. It's amazing. I particularly love working with him. He was the person that really gave me a break because I danced in a production that he had written the scenario for. It was a ballet choreographed by Javier de Frutos and the music written by the Pet Shop Boys.
Oh yeah.
So Matthew Dunster was writing the scenario for that, and whilst he was working on that, he said to me, "Do you want to be in a play at the Globe? I need an angel with a sword." With a samurai sword, who can be really physical, and I went to audition and I got that part, and it was just like something different. It was branching out, and from then on I went to do another Shakespeare play with him directing, and I was in it. It was Two Gentlemen of Verona, and then he said to me one night, "Do you want to choreograph my Midsummer Night's Dream?" And I said yes. It bit his hand off.
Yeah.
But I'd never done it before, and he really took a chance. I could have been, it could have been a disaster, but he really gave, and that's what he does. He just really puts trust in people, and from then on, from that show, then I worked with him again and again, and then I started to forge a career in movement direction and theatre choreography because he gave me a break.
Yeah.
If he hadn't, I don't know how that would have happened,
Yeah.
So I feel very grateful.
Yeah. How many times do you think, because I feel like this comes up a lot too, is being given an opportunity and you just dive in and say yes.
Yeah.
And then you go, I don't know if I can do this, but I'm just going to say that I can. Like, how many times have you done that? Do you know what I mean?
Gosh,
in your career?
I mean, it happens all the time.
Yeah.
You have to say yes, don't you? And then you worry about it when you get home.
That's right.
Am I going to do this?
Yeah.
But, if the positivity and the willing is there, it's if you've got the right trust holding you, supporting you, then, you're going to be okay.
Yeah, and you can trust in your experience. I feel like that's just sort of the creative process, isn't it, across all things? Because even when you get to a certain level, there's so much unknown about whether something's going to succeed. So you still feel like, even if at the top of your game, you're like, I don't know if I can do this.
Exactly,
That doesn't change.
But maybe that's what makes you work harder as well, because you think, I don't know whether I can do this. I've got to do it. So, the anxiety makes you work harder and achieve. Perhaps if you didn't have that anxiety, you'd be too chilled out about it and there wouldn't be enough, stakes.
That's right. Yeah, they often say that nerves means that you can.
Yes,
And the excitement means that you really invested in what you're doing. Yeah. Oh,
it's very
amazing.
hard. Like the nerves seem greater when I'm on the other side. When you're dancing, the nerves are less because you keep dancing and the nerves disappear.
Yeah.
When you're on the other side, sort of sitting, watching, oh my goodness, that is
really
so nerve-wracking.
Wow.
I've never experienced nerves like it.
Gosh, I feel like that would be really surprising to people because a lot of people can't imagine going on stage for starters and, doing a performance, and there's a lot of pressure to get the choreography right and, not fall over and those things. But for you, it's more the other side. So when you're watching your dancers and your choreography, wow.
I get so nervous.
Really? Has there ever been, what's been your favourite show, firstly to dance in and then to choreograph so far?
So there were a couple of shows. I danced Carmen in Northern Ballet, and I absolutely loved that with my whole self. And then when I went to Sweden, I danced Aurora in Sleeping Beauty, and it was she was a very feisty character, and I loved that. I was sort of pinching myself that I was doing that role because it was something that I'd seen before, and I felt very, very lucky. I loved those.
Yeah.
There's been a few as movement director and choreographer that I've loved, but I always go back to the first one that Matthew gave me the break on, which is Midsummer Night's Dream at Regent's Park. Somehow that it just felt huge because it was the first time and someone had given me a chance and I needed not to fail. So that one felt quite special. But there have been loads that I've loved. There was Much Ado About Nothing at the Globe, which Matthew also directed.
Yeah.
It was, Mexican dancing and beautiful costumes by Anna Fleischler. Yeah, that was very special too. But there's been many. I really enjoy them all.
Yeah. What's the process like when you get booked on a job as the movement director or the choreographer, and then obviously you're with the creative team and you're just discussing costumes and things like that? Do you go away and start listening to music, or do they have the music already given to you? Like, how much do you sort of bring your ideas or go away and stew on things like in your process?
I think it depends on the director. Working with Matthew, he loves music, so we'll quite often send reference music, and that instantly, as soon as I have music, I know what kind of vibe or flavour it needs. And he also likes to get together or talk. He likes to talk a lot, and it's a constant sort of he's feeding you with his ideas, and so then and quite often we send each other videos, dance videos.
Right.
It's just that we just send videos, because then it's like I know what kind of style he's after, and then I will send some that sort of reflect that, and there's like this constant sort of referencing. And
I think that's really important to know, because it's your style of research,
yes.
right? In all creative fields, there's always research going on, like you said, bouncing ideas.
And also really knowing the play, reading the script and sort of making notes of where movement could go in, because you don't want it to look like it's on top, like a number. No. It's got to infiltrate really smoothly. So really knowing the script.
It's got to tell the story through the body and through the music. I love it. It's such an incredible process. Awesome. And so I thought I'd better ask this first. You mentioned Hunger Games. Is that hush hush though? Can that not be public yet?
No, that's okay. We can talk about that now. I think for a while it was very hush hush.
Yeah. So you mentioned that the next thing you've got coming up is choreographer
yes.
the Hunger Games musical.
Well, it's not a musical, it's going to be a play.
That's amazing.
But it's the first time it's been done outside of the film.
The films, yeah. So tell us a bit. Is it going to be is it a trilogy, isn't it?
It's going to be the first book, or the first film. Mm-hmm. And it's sort of, it's very it closely follows the story. So there's nothing different story wise, but it's a very different way of telling the story, because we have movement, and there's screens, and there are live fights, and
wow,
it's very, very exciting. We've done quite a few workshops where we've sort of figured out a sort of sketch of things. And that starts in 2025, the rehearsals for that.
Okay.
And we have a few workshops.
And will that premiere in London?
Premieres in London.
Oh my gosh, that's so exciting.
It premieres in April.
Yeah. Wow. And so do you, for example, for the fight scenes, do you get in a fight choreographer?
Yes, there's a fight.
Work with?
There's a fight choreographer. So Matthew gathers his team together, and he has a fight director called Kev McCurdy, who's very experienced in film, television, theatre, making fights. And the Hunger Games has a lot of fights.
Yeah.
So,
but will that be translated into a dance?
Well, I think it'll be a separate thing, but they will somehow seamlessly weave together. Yeah. That's the aim.
Okay. Is there singing in it too, or is it
there isn't
dialogue
singing? It's a play, so it's been written. The adaptation, the play has been written by Conor McPherson.
Yeah.
So it's he's super talented. So it's going to be it's a really excellent script, and we're in the process now of auditioning people for it.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. I have so many questions. I'm like, is it going to be like group dancing when the fight, when there's a war breakout? Like, oh my God, do the contestants fight together and dance together? I can't wait to see it. Oh
yeah, it's really, it feels, I feel very, again, I keep saying I feel grateful, but I feel really, really honoured to be part of that team. Yeah. It's going to be epic. Yeah, but it's well deserved, your place there. There's no question in my mind. You know what I mean? You're meant to be there because everything you've done, and it's incredible. Thank you.
You've had an incredible career. Yeah. So I want to ask you about being a woman in entertainment field. What do you think? What's the most either important thing to you, or the most rewarding thing do you think about being a woman who works in the entertainment business?
I think when you're, I'm a mum. I have a little boy. He's 8. And I think it's really rewarding when you're working with a team, a director, who understands that you have a life outside of the theatre. Sometimes it can be tricky because, the show must go on and nothing must get in the way of that. And it feels very rewarding for me if I'm working with someone that understands that, you know, sometimes you just got to go, and sometimes you've got to bring them with you, and that feels quite amazing. Sometimes when I'm working at Ballet Black, and you know, the Casa lets me bring Gilbert in, and he's sitting in the corner and he's watching all the dancing, and he's like watching me work, and you know, he'll come home and he'll start talking about some of the music. That feels really rewarding because it's like your life and your career coming together and being supported.
Yeah, that's so rare.
It is rare, yeah.
That's amazing. And what an amazing sort of thing for him to see growing up, you know, like seeing mum in action and at work and in such a, you know, amazing field as well.
And he'll sometimes go backstage in a theatre because he's got to come with me or with my husband. Yeah. And as soon as he gets backstage, he's like, oh, this is my favourite place to be in the world.
Really?
So, you know, maybe he might end up going into performing, I don't know. But you know, he's already got, well, he'll stand on stage when there's no audience, and, you know, he'll sort of feel that theatre magic. Yeah.
That's awesome. Is he showing signs already of sort of taking an interest in one of them?
Well, he likes singing. He's a chorister at Southwark Cathedral, so and he's very committed to it. They have a huge commitment to that. There's like 11 hours a week, singing and rehearsing. Yeah. So I think because my husband and I, Sam and I, are both, you know, we know what it is to put the hours in to practice. We can support him in that. And he's very theatrical how he speaks. So it wouldn't surprise me if he went into theatre somehow. Yeah,
oh, it's amazing and perfect, you know, because I often think this with my girls, like, because my husband's also in the entertainment arts, that because we know that path, we've walked that path, it just sort of makes it really easy for them to then, or, you know, because we'll understand and we'll be able to support them if they do want to do that way. Whereas I think obviously if you come from a family who no one's ever done it seems very scary and like, oh, but how do you, it's, you know, unstable and all of that. Yeah. So do you think the industry treats women well in ballet, theatre, dance, and how do you think that's maybe and hopefully improved over time since when you started?
I can remember, you know, some early days of movement direction, and I might be the only woman in the creative team, and that's, you know, it's quite a big team, composer and lighting designer and set designer, you know, there's a big team, and I might have been the only woman. And I think quite soon after that, there was a big drive to promote female creative teams. Yeah. So I think some of the jobs I got in those early days were because they were looking for a female movement director. Yeah. So I sort of benefited from that drive. I still feel like sometimes in visiting theatre, so not within the teams that I work with, but when you visit a theatre, for example, and there might be a male sound technician or a lighting technician, or, you know, that are operating. Sometimes I feel as though if you go and speak to part of the theatre crew, there might be a little bit of, well, you wouldn't understand love.
Oh, gosh. So old school, isn't it?
So old school. But there is that around, and that feels highly frustrating. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Especially, like, where's the respect? I'm sorry, but, like, you've been in the game so long and you've done so many things, and if someone's like, oh, you wouldn't understand. Like,
I mean, it's not, you know, that's not verbatim, but there is definitely that sense of, like,
still a vibe. Yeah. That's unfortunate. Yeah. I do, like, I guess because I'm in music now, and there's definitely a push for more, like, female engineers, for example, in sound. Yeah. I'm sure it's probably, well, hopefully it's similar in lighting, but I guess the more we can see, you know, just a bit of an even balance with women appearing in those roles, that can, even just to definitely support, like, feel supported. Like, have you felt like you know, because obviously as a ballet dancer you would have been surrounded by women. Has there been a sense of sisterhood, or has it been competitive? Like, especially something like ballet, you know, I would assume it sounds like something like modelling where you think like, ooh, is it a bit sometimes?
There naturally there would have been a bit of competitiveness. But I had really great friends when I was working in a ballet company in Northern Ballet. One of my best friends, you just, you know, you feel supported by that because you've got, she's called Maddie Brennan, and she's, you know, she's still one of my best friends today. So there will be competition around you, but if you've got your tribe, you're going to be okay, protected and supported, and, you know, likewise I'll support her.
That's wonderful. It's actually what I keep hearing more and more, because I feel like, and it's something I've probably said in some of the other episodes, but often I think society, you know, in film definitely pictures these stories of women just being uber competitive, but what I'm hearing from women is actually very supportive of each other, and there is a sense of the sisterhood, and particularly I think when you find yourself in scenarios where you are the only woman and there's another woman. I know for me personally, I'm like, yay, like come here, let's be friends, you know.
But the media love that narrative, don't they?
Absolutely,
When I worked in Sweden and there were 2 female directors, I mean, that was the most wonderful environment I can imagine. It was, you know, so nurturing and supportive, and they were wonderful at leading a group of 20 dancers.
There you go. Exactly. More of that. We need more of that. We need more of you out there. Like running these teams. So it sounds like you've had a mostly positive experience. Has there been any other like personal struggles that you're willing to share sort of through your career? Just because I think it's sometimes interesting for people to hear, you know, if they're experiencing it and they think like, okay, well, she got through it. I can get through it. Or
being a dancer and it being your whole identity and your whole life, and you know it's short, so you know you put everything into it and keep it going, and not letting anything get in the way of it. I really put off motherhood. You know, I can remember thinking, oh, not now. I've got to dance this role, not now. I want to go to that company, not now. And also the circumstances weren't right. But by the time I met my husband, Sam, and we really wanted to have a family, you know, I was quite old, and we ended up having a lot of IVF. You know, it was painful, and you know, of course, you think in the back of your head, you know what would have happened if I'd have started earlier. But of course, I hadn't met my husband then, so it wouldn't have been so. You know, the family wouldn't have been so tight. You know, but it was. You know, I do think sometimes, what if I had tried a bit sooner? But I didn't, and that was, you know, my choice at the time. And like I said, I just wanted to get all the dancing years in that I could. And also, I feel like because I've waited, because I, you know, didn't cut my career short, I can feel. Again, I feel complete with that. I think I might have felt like, oh, I didn't quite get to do what I, you know. So it swings and roundabouts, but that was a very, very difficult time for us. Very painful, and you know, a lot of heartache, and
it's hard. I almost feel like it's a sacrifice either way. So like you said, you either have to sacrifice so that you get to children later, or you have to sacrifice years of your career. Like I took 10 years out of my career to have 2 children, and I sort of had to reinvent myself in my 40s now in music. So I think either way, like I like what you said, you wouldn't have met your husband, so also it's about the right person timing. And the timing, because I have other friends who it's the same story. They'd actually given up on children, but then they met their husband at 40 and then they had a child, you know, and it was just wonderful. Like, well, this is just how it was supposed to happen. But I love that you said you know, because I've thought about this myself too, and I think it's really applicable to women in entertainment, is that when you can feel like, okay, yes, I've done lots of stuff that I wanted to do career-wise, it is perhaps easier to then give time out, because we have to take time out to have kids. It's just a fact.
It is a
for
fact.
women, for mothers. You can't just go at 100 miles an hour doing your career when you've got a child under 5.
No.
Like those first 5 years, it's
So
really
important.
grueling. Yeah, so
I think when I've had my son, so I had been choreographing a show that had that was going into the West End. It was called Nell Gwyn, and it was really important to me. But, you know, I was pregnant when I was I think when I was choreographing it. Yeah. And I had Gilbert, my son, and I think the rehearsals were starting 3 weeks or 4 weeks, 5 weeks, really, really early. The rehearsals were starting. And before I had Gilbert, I said, I can be there. I can do it.
Yeah.
I'll be there. I'll do it. No problem.
Yeah.
And so
naivete.
naive.
Yeah.
So we had my mother-in-law and my husband took Gilbert, and they sat in a cafe, like downstairs or in a, you know, really close by to where I was rehearsing. And I was rehearsing away, and then I could see Sam in the doorway, and he was like, "You've got to come," because he needs feeding. And then I'd be like, "I've got to go," and then I'd run downstairs. Gosh. And I thought, what have I done?
What am I doing? Yeah.
What am I doing? I just want to be with my baby and not, you know, feeding him in a cafe somewhere to rush back. And my friend Maddie, who I met, I knew from Northern Ballet, she came and took over the job for me and rehearsed them and went to press night and everything. So I then just went back home with Gilbert. And
oh, yeah, I know. And I think I feel like especially, you know, women like you, and I'm like this too, where we are so capable and we're so used to just being like, yes, I can do it, I can do it, I can do it.
Yeah.
And then unless you've had someone really sit down with you and say, like, you can't do that in the first few months of having a baby. Like, you have to stay home. Like, literally for 3 months.
You will need to do that.
Yeah. If you don't realise, of course you just assume, well, I just bounce back. I just like, oh, you know, it's just having a baby. Like, you don't realise the gargantuous change to your life. Just fit it on my hip. It's push it in the pusher.
There's a narrative, isn't there, that you can have it all. Women can have it all. But something somewhere will, you know, you want to be able to have it all, but like you say, if you have a child under 5, you can't be rushing around touring the world. You know, there's something somewhere will suffer, or you have to compromise somewhere. And if you've got a little tiny baby, they need you.
And they're so unpredictable, because if they get sick, or like you said, you know, when sometimes you're just like, I have to go. You know, like the school's called me and my kid's puking.
I've got to go.
I literally have no other choice. I can't just be like, oh can you just look after them for 2 hours till I finish work? No, that's
I'll be back
not.
Then.
It's like not possible. And I think it's interesting, that thing about like, oh, you can do it all. Like, you can be a mum and you can have a career and da-da-da-da. And I think, like, yes, you can.
You can.
But it's also a very dangerous narrative, potentially, because also not everyone is built to do it all, have it all. Okay, I do think it takes a certain personality, certain amount of energy. It's so dependent on your baby. If they sleep,
exactly.
If they don't fucking sleep,
if they don't have colic,
there is no exactly. There's no hope that you're getting anything done. Right, exactly. Family. I didn't have any family over here when I had my second child, and that was like, thank goodness, you know, my husband was working, because like I literally couldn't. She wouldn't sleep. Like there's all that. It's so unpredictable.
But also you can feel like a failure if you're told you can have it all, and when you think, actually I can't do it all right now. It's potentially, you know, it's quite damaging, because you feel like you're failing.
That's so true.
Because it's drummed into you. Women can have it all now.
Yeah, that's so true. That's why it's dangerous, because you shouldn't feel
like you're failing at anything.
No, because sometimes it's just takes up your whole life just trying to look after this baby. But obviously you're supposed to. You're supposed to nurture this thing. It's a full-time occupation. It's that's dangerous. It's not acknowledging the work it takes
Yes,
to raise these children, to give them, to be good parents.
Yes.
Because, you know, like rushing off all the time and this carer to that carer to this carer. Like I get, you know, sometimes also for the mum's sanity, she needs to go and work. And I get that too. It's like
definitely.
totally your choice. Like what works for you. But yeah, not this expectation that you should be able to hold it together and you should be so strong, superwoman. Zen mama. Like, yeah, because everybody's different. Ugh. Yeah. So do you think little Gilbert, I love his name, by the way. It just makes me think of Gilbert the grape. It's so cute. All right, and let me just do a chime check. Okay. So before we finish up, I just have a few more questions left for you. What's something, and this it feels like a silly question, but I think it's just interesting to ask. What's something that people perhaps don't know about you? Like, do you have a special hobby or a funny party trick or something like that? Ooh. Something you do in your free time that people might not know about you?
I really like interior design.
Oh, awesome.
I really, I'm always buying magazines, and, you know, if I had the money to change my decor all the time, I'd be doing it.
Yeah.
At one point I thought, should I do like a course or something, you know?
Yeah.
But of course, a course is short, and, you know, interior designers have full careers and experience, so it's not like I would, but it would just be for fun, I think.
Yeah.
But I really like interior design.
So do you think that's what you'd be doing if you weren't a ballet dancer and choreographer?
No. I think if I didn't go into ballet, I think at one point early on I wanted to be an actress.
Oh, yeah.
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 And I think when I had this vision, when I stop dancing, I'll go into theatre and I'll be an actress.
Yeah.
Very naive to think that. And I think I actually did get a chance to be Matthew Dunster had me in Two Gentlemen of Verona, which I spoke about earlier, a Shakespeare play. And I remember standing on stage thinking, well, what do I do with my feet? What do I do with my arms? I just want to move. So that I quickly felt like, you know, I had a little bit of stage fright doing that.
Yeah. Did you just feel like, oh, this feels so still with
so
my
still.
body, like it's about the dialogue?
My feet are like tingling because they need to
pointing
dance.
your foot in the background. It's like, what are you doing with your foot there?
Yeah. What are you doing with your arms?
Yeah. Just like arabesquing. Stop arabesquing.
Yeah. Totally like that.
Yeah, I love that. And what do you think it takes to do what you've done?
Well, to start off with, you have to love it with your whole heart, because it's too difficult to be in it and not be 100% in it. It's so difficult, and, you know, there's so much. You know, we talked about it earlier, there's so much rejection, and you're constantly compared, and it's not just about your dancing, it's about your physical appearance. You've got to love it. And if you love it, then you've got to work hard every day. And, you know, keep your curiosity, look at choreographers, look at companies you might want to join, you know, keep looking at different dancers, different styles, keep opening up, and also just keep thinking outside the box on what you're going to potentially do when you can't dance anymore. You know, what are you going to do? What's it going to be? Where are you going to go?
That's such an important one, isn't it? Because of the lifespan of any physical discipline, there comes a point where inevitably, even, you know, you went so long, like I said, it's so inspiring to go into your 40s, but you do have to think, okay, well, I still have 15 years potentially of working. What am I going to do next?
And, you know, people, you know, rightly so, people say a dance career is really short, but you can still continue in the dance industry, being a choreographer or a coach or rehearsal director, or, you know, you can still keep that in your life. So it doesn't potentially need to be a short career. You just need to know that you've got to keep your eyes open in your ears and be curious. Be, hungry for new stuff. Make connections.
That's such a big part of it.
Mm.
Yeah. And finally, what's next for you? Like, do you have things that you still want to achieve professionally and personally?
I feel like the Hunger Games is this huge thing.
I'm so excited about that. I can't wait. I'm so excited.
I feel like I'm just thinking about that, for the future. That is, it's a big block of important time that I would really, besides that, I'd really like to pick HeadSpaceDance up again. I felt so complete when I was doing that because I felt like I was, all my past and all the avenues were kind of coming together in one place. And I felt really thrilled by leading something as well, together with Chris Ackrell, but I felt really thrilled by that kind of leadership and my kind of leadership, not like how, textbooks say leaders should be. It was like how we wanted to lead it, and it might have been different to other people, textbook. I'd like to do more of that.
So more shows with your company.
And that means, a lot of fundraising and, a lot of travelling around, speaking to people, all of that, which is thrilling. But that's something I'd like to do.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, thank you so much for sharing your insights and sharing your story. It's been really illuminating. And I'll say it one more time, but I can't wait for the Hunger Games. It's so exciting. Round of applause.
Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure.
The greatest show